Good afternoon. You're welcome along to Local Media This Week, the programme here on SBCR where we talk about what's in the newspapers, mainly the Clare Echo and the Clare Champion. I said we have the usual crew here. John S. is here, Pat O'Brien is here, and Jim, of course, has gone and abandoned me again and left me here, but he's left me with a very able replacement, and Dr. Fleming is also AWOL. So, but Carol McNamara, delighted to have the female contingent back and represented, and very well represented again. So good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Lovely to be here, and I'm really enjoying the super sub position.
Yes, yes. I said
and brought on at the right
being
time.
sprung from the bench.
Exactly. Now, listen. We normally start with we'll say what the main topics in the paper, but there's one topic in the paper that I want to start with, and it affects us all here in East Clare, and it's in the Clare Echo, but it relates to Fiona McGarry, who is the journalist with the Clare Champion, who is sadly leaving the Clare Champion and will no longer be our East Clare correspondent, and is heading full-time for a job in the University of Galway. And I think on behalf of everybody that reads the media, papers in East Clare, all of Clare and further beyond, we would like to extend on behalf of the radio and everybody in the room here, and we'll get around to you all in a second, the very best of wishes to Fiona, because an absolute lady and an absolutely very, very impressive journalist. Is we say the list of awards that she has won in the article there stands for itself. I think personally her work in relation to pyrite in County Clare, she should get a medal for it.
Indeed.
You know, over a sustained period of time. But we wish her the very best, and hopefully we'll try and get her back for the odd interview here and there. But Carol.
Yeah, I mean, Fiona is going to be just a huge loss. She's a great friend to Scariff Bay Radio, and she's always been so, I mean, a very high quality journalist, and as you say, all those awards speak for themselves. But she was always so very, very approachable, and, you know, she's going to be a huge addition to the teaching staff, I mean, the full-time lecturing staff in NUIG, where she's going to bring such massive experience from print media, and also through her work on Clare FM and whatever. So I again wish her the very best, and as we say, I hope we'll all stay in touch with her, because she's a great girl.
Exactly. John.
Luke, notice that Fiona was very tied down to the East Clare. She was our correspondent, wasn't she? She was. And it's a very, very commendable article in the Echo, which is rather nice, you know, regarding her role. During her time with the Champion, she became the first journalist, I didn't realise that, in the country to report on pyrite in County Clare. Absolutely. And has extensively highlighted the matter since her first article on the topic way back in September 2020. She's also served, of course, as a lecturer. Now, she got a rare award in UCG for the quality of her teaching. Would you love to have her in a school as one of your staff men, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, she is so...
Well, I said we've been lucky to have her in East Clare. We've been lucky to have her here, you know, on the programme here. She has come in a few occasions, and anytime we've met her out and about, she's always been open to talk. And Carol, you most recently met her at the school, we'll say, for the Ed O'Brien Awards, where she gave an absolutely fabulous speech.
Absolutely fabulous. Inspirational.
And it was inspirational to the two of us old people. I can only imagine what it was like, we'll say, for the students.
Yeah.
Pat, you're a fellow employee in the Clare Champion.
I know, but anyway, yeah, Fiona, I know pretty well, and she, anytime we had articles, I think she'd be more than helpful to get an article on the paper. So, anything to do with journalism, and she'll be a loss to the Clare Champion and East Clare. We wish her the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I said, I'm sure we'll drag her out.
Yeah.
I said, we'll go. But anyway, listen, we will start. We'll get on to the both papers have articles in relation to The water in Lahinch, page 1 of the Clare Echo, Pádraig McMahon, Lahinch water bacteria sparks huge concerns. And Jessica Quinn has the article on page 1 of the Champion. Lahinch left dead in the water. Swimming ban threatens businesses in Clare's summer tourism capital. Now, before we just start in relation to this, because I'm sure we'll all have plenty of thoughts, there was one topic that I had on my mind last week, but I omitted to mention it. And it was an acknowledgement and it was ironically in the green pages on the Echo. It was an acknowledgement that a waste treatment plant may have been responsible for a fish kill in North Clare.
Yeah.
And we said we omitted to cover that last week, and I said I apologise for this, but it sort of leads into, I think, the nub of this article. John, your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say to yourself, Luke, I mean, that both papers have interesting headings. One of them particularly catchy, Lahinch left dead in the water. Now, it means that we have a report of E. coli in the water system around the county. We're not just talking now about 1 or 2 spots, but is this the second year in a row where we have been warned off swimming in our lovely beaches? I thought, the funny thing about it, Carl, I thought that the early part of the year that we were given the blue flag. Were we?
Well, I mean, this is a current problem. It doesn't matter whether when the blue flag was awarded, it was awarded based on that water testing quality at that time. I know I was up in Barna last week. I was swimming in Barna. The EPA were there testing water, and almost all the way down the beaches through Mayo, Achill, Mulranny, the whole way down the Galway coast and into North Clare, they was talking about the runoff with the excessive amount of rainfall. So that's kind of been a problem. So somebody getting a blue flag one day isn't exactly going to be the issue. You know, I think the quote about it's like having your dinner. What's the quote there? It's a very good quote in the Champion.
It's in the second second paragraph there.
Often the bathing water notice can come in 2 or 3 days after the water is bad, and by the time the notice gets out, it's too late. It's like someone telling you your food was poisoned 2 days after your dinner. So you have a lot of sick people with no public health warning.
So we go back to the basic cause then, don't we?
Yeah.
It's coming off the land. I presume. What do you think, Luke?
I don't think so.
You don't think it's coming off the land?
A certain amount maybe, but I don't think it all is, Pat.
Yeah, part of it comes off the land, John, and what happens is, and if you read the article there, I have the 2 articles today, if you read the article there, it looks like the water coming off the chutes and all that, what you call that, the wastewater that comes off the roofs and the chutes, and that's all funneled into the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
And then when you have very heavy rain, it fills up and it overflows. So I can't see why they wouldn't put the water off the roofs and let it come off all the roofs and the sheds and around the towns on a separate. Are
you saying the plants aren't large enough to absorb unusual spin-off?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what it looks like here. What was explained on the paper.
So we are back to, in fact, seeing some connection between household and surplus water into a system that can't take it. That's what you're saying.
I don't think it would be surplus water. I think it's just as a result of probably the large amount of rain that has occurred, in sort of recent weeks.
And then you have that, Luke, is that this happened last year as well. We didn't have the rains we're talking.
It happens in the summer, John, because and then you have people as well. You have a lot of tourists as well. So all the west of Clare towns and villages would be you'd have extra people there, and you would have extra.
You would have the holiday homes would be more occupied as well, John.
So what
along
would you
with
say?
The normal accommodations.
If the Willie Clancy week, I mean, what that would bring in terms of people into
the
area, Spanish Point and Motormobile.
Maybe Doolin isn't too much off the tack then when you think of just what you said. Too many people. We don't. The upturn in an enhanced tourism business is a price has to be paid. And it does look as if, in fact, we're slow to pay the price.
In Simon and the Hinch, there's two separate systems. Now, the new plan is that they'll bring it all in under one.
Integrate the two.
And
more.
And the two, and halfway between in Simon and the Hinch, and bring a new system.
Is that?
Well, that's part of the solution, but that could be 2 years down the road, or maybe more.
2
And
years.
of course, the effect of,
But it's happened in Kilkee as well, Carol, and it's happened in various places around. Like there's a list of them there now. Here in Porrick's article there on page 4. Over the past 4 years, there have been 10 separate do not swim notices issued for the Hinch, Kilkee, White Strand, Milton Bay, Spanish Point, and White Strand Bay in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Kilkee was hit with a swimming ban lasting a combined 21 days. 2 of these notices were directly attributed to a malfunction at the sewerage pumping station caused by a burst in the rising main. So
they're getting full, as he says in the article. They're getting full. We call it the retaining system. Is spilling over much quicker during the wet summer. Is that what you're saying?
And then there's the problems within the EPA. I mean, Roisin Garvey has highlighted that in the report in the Echo, where she's saying obviously it's a huge health issue. E. coli is so serious to people who are already vulnerable. So pregnant women whose immune systems would be impacted. Also, there's a woman who has a young woman who got kidney failure who's still in treatment. So E. coli is a very serious thing. But she makes the point very well, I think, that, when people start losing faith in swimming, which is a healthy thing to do, that's serious for tourism, it's serious for people's health. But the point that the EPA are so understaffed, only 11 enforcement officers for what should be potentially 65.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've got a lot of factors in that, haven't you?
Absolutely, and the whole issue with Irish Water and funding, I think, sort of who is to blame? Who knows, John?
But we've got to get to the root solution.
Now, the root solution of it, John, is that basically there is very little investment going into our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right? Why is that? Because of Irish Water and the way that the whole system was set up, the protests that took place, and this political meanderings, dilly-dallying, and mess that they made of the whole situation, and that you have a scenario now where you have a company called Irish Water, or whatever it's been rebranded to in recent times, Uisce Éireann, that they need money to get investment, and we're not paying water charges. And I don't think any politician in this country is going to introduce water charges anytime in the next 20 years. Yeah. So it's a catch-22. They don't have the money to invest. All the councils are giving out. Everybody's giving out. And what we're doing about it, sweet FA.
So we have 15 billion we're going to have 15 billion when the budget comes out of the way we want to spend them.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if any of that winds up with water. I'd say health will probably take a big chunk of that, and that'll disappear into a black hole as well, which we can talk about that later on. But we'll move on. Okay, and I think we're going from foul smells to a bit of hot air, and we'll go to energy planning on page 2 on the Champion and page 19 on the Echo. And this again goes back to not preparing to plan. And lack of wind energy guidelines inexcusable. And Fiona has the article on page 2, and she says, I think Porrick has it on page 19 there in the Echo. Communities are suffering due to the government's failure to update guidelines on wind energy, according to a West Clare member of Clare County Council. The July meeting of the local authority, Councillor Killian Murphy described the current situation as, quote, utterly inexcusable. Councillor Michael Begley accused the government of being negligent and called for it to have the guts to publish new guidelines. Now, John.
The processes I'm interested in. What processes will be used to establish a new set of guidelines which are seriously out of date? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, but this is a little bit like, do we want to have our cake and eat it? Councillor Murphy says that, quote, staff in the planning section are suffering. Developers are ploughing on without clarity. We're hamstrung by guidelines dating to 2006. Turbine heights were 60 metres, now they're in excess of 170 metres.
Remember, Luke, the company that pulled out about a year ago, that pulled out of the agreement that was being negotiated.
Yeah, that was a Telenor, I think, wasn't it?
Yes,
That was for offshore wind, yeah.
Absolutely. They, when they were questioned about why they were pulling out, the nuance in the language was because of, in fact, bureaucratic operation of the planning system.
Yeah, it's lack of it, and lack of government foresight and leadership. And I said we've spoken about it here before. Now, this is sort of, there's a little bit of an irony here, and this is mainly, I think, in relation to onshore wind, right? You say, Pat, you were talking to the Mayor of Clare last weekend, Councillor Joe Cooney, in relation to, a large number of wind farms that are proposed, we'll say, for East Clare, and the heights in relation to those. So if you're going with, say, guidelines that initially said 60 metres and now it's 170 metres, that's a large difference, whereas we need to be getting more offshore wind. And I think if we get more offshore wind, we can sort of reduce the reliance on sort of having to have the number of wind farms that we have on site. Carol, what do you think?
I wouldn't be as au fait with this story. I don't think. I mean, what I see is that you got out of initially when you look to create turbines, or build turbines that were 60 metres, and now they're 170 metres. Initially, they were in very rural areas. Now they're happening in communities, they're impacting on that. So there's a lot of great unhappiness, and probably no more than the story of the asylum seekers or the thing about not engaging with communities, the refugees. This is also being said that there is a feeling that this is just imposed on communities, and that a lot of the resources have to be used in defending, So there is so many issues around this.
Well, planning
but old guidelines, those guidelines aren't fit for purpose.
Yeah.
At the heart of it, that's
planning has always been a contentious subject, hasn't it? And trying to get a social agreement, which is what our local democracy seeks, trying to get that. Some people would say is well nigh impossible. There has to be a little benign dictatorship. In other words, the decision makers have to draw on social support, haven't they? Yeah. If they don't get it, then they're out on the street.
Yeah, but these processes are happening to communities, that's the quote. They're happening to communities, not with them. I fully accept the need for renewable energies. That was, is that PJ, or Councillor Murphy said, I fully accept the need for renewable energy, but some communities have enough, and West Clare is now a net exporter.
Yeah, I suppose look at outdated wind industry guidelines and a dismal failure of government is the hidden there with part of the story. And lack of wind industry guidelines been excusable in both papers, Fiona. But why can't they issue proper updated guidelines? These guidelines seem to be way outdated. And at least there should be some sort of new, we were talking about wind energy for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's on the paper every week and all, and there seems to be no proper guidelines for it. Updated ones anyway, and Leo Radcliffe was down in Armagh there last week, and they were bringing in a new plan for the Shannon Estuary, wind farms and all that.
Pat Hayes, our own one of our local councillors, Pat, he was critical in this particular article by Fiona McGarry. He was critical of the lack of power for local politicians. So the question now is widening out. Is it considered to be a better way of reaching decisions by increasing the power of the councillors? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I suppose.
What do you think, Luke?
I suppose they should have some say in it. They're the people on the ground. They're the people that's dealing with everyone around.
But Pat seems to think they don't have enough at all.
Yeah, well, they probably don't, and maybe they should have more. They're dealing with all the people around wherever those wind farms are being put up. I mean,
As
this
I
stuff is
said,
above in Dublin. It's not going to be.
there's not too many wind farms being put up in D4.
No.
True.
You know, and there's proposals for a lot of them, we say, around the country, and they said, you know, everyone around here is going to have to live with them.
There isn't so many in Dublin in general.
No,
The one in Bridgetown was that refused planning permission? The one near Bridgetown.
Yeah, there was one turned down.
That one was turned down. And is the one in Bodyke going ahead?
That went straight to Board Planalda. The Bridgetown one didn't, and again it goes back to the lack of planning and proper lack of legislation. Listen, we'll move on. He spoke last week about a doctor in Newmarket, and Pat, there's a bit of an update this week. I think it's at page 8.
At page 8 of
the Echo.
The Echo. Pádraig McMahon's the story there again. The Macklin Fergus GP practice moved delayed until the end of the year. The Macklin Fergus GP practice will continue to operate out of Carrigorn until December, the Minister of Health has said. Over 200 people attended a recent public meeting in the Macklin Fergus on the future of GP services in the village. Following this, a delegation of the Macklin Fergus Community Forum met the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, who confirmed the current arrangement will be extended until December. It has been due to expire in September. Since June 2020, rooms in the daycare centre in Carrigorn House has been relocated for the medical practice in the Macklin Fergus. Saffron Room Medical Centre received a contract from the HSE to operate this service following the retirement of Dr. Colin Hackett in May 2019. He has been the village GP for 42 years. So it looks like they've extended it until December, but I think the community council there are going to be tracing up maybe potential places in the village for the doctor. And it appears here, I just read from Pat McMahon here, he was the councillor from the market. He recorded that there are 13 applications for the contract following Dr. Hackett's retirement. Councillor McMahon calculated that it would cost $150,000 to convert a potential premise in the village into a modern GP centre, which will have a reception, 2 doctors' rooms, 2 nurses' rooms, modern toilets, a waiting room and small kitchen. So 180,000 is an awful lot of money, John.
But tell me, Pat, how do you deal with the shortage of medical people, doctors and nurses? We have it's a real thing.
According to the Councillor McMahon here, there was 13 applicants for the contract following Dr. Hackett's retirement.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is, although that is an issue, John, about the shortage, the worldwide shortage of medical personnel. This is really, I think this story is essentially, Dr. Colin Hackett, whom I knew well, was 43 years there. When he left, like this was no big surprise. This man came to the age of retirement. That's 4 years ago. Like what in the name of God? And moving that, if you know the geography of Carrigorn and where it is in relation to the village, people must be beside themselves with, of course, fearing, like what happened in Fecal, that they would lose their doctor. Of course, they fear that. But even the hardship of actually getting to Carrigorn for people who have no transport.
Tell me this.
It's terrible.
I have argued fairly frequently on our programme that we need compulsory 2-year commitment by medical people to the state. That's after they have qualified, once they're out of internship. 2 years, because they're getting away with a very, very expensive discipline for little enough money. And I feel compulsion is demanded.
This issue, there will be people interested in this job.
Yeah.
That's very little money, 150,000.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Nothing.
I don't think it's nothing, but to prepare a surgery.
Like, in the HSE budget for the year, like 150,000 is like the officials.
Yeah.
Essentially, what are you saying? Are you saying that no, the compulsion factor commitment to the state. Are you actually?
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, I would agree with you with that, John. That there should be a
And
commitment.
it
to the
may,
state.
as professions begin to slide downwards in terms of numbers, you may have to extend the compulsion factor. Could happen in teaching. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I'm staying with. I'm waiting for an argument to say, no, John, that's unfair.
I think, John, your argument has common sense written all over it and it has merit, but it's unlikely to happen. We're going to move on.
There's 800, like there's 800 card holders. There's 800 card holders in the market. So, like there should be nearly a place there for 2 doctors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the population is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, is it all red tape, all these things, when that thing should be all sorted out?
Yeah.
For about
Well, sure,
50,000.
the can has been kicked down the road to Christmas, so we'll see what happens. Now, we need to move on. I have a few topics to cover very quickly. And Carol, I was told by yourself that I had to make mention to a visitor of some renown in the cookery section, and you being very much along the chef and chefette passion yourself. Tell us all about it.
Well, I would love to have met Gordon Ramsay, who was on his way from Doolin to Inisheer. And
The article's in the...
the article's in the Echo on page 2, and I had seen on social media, I think it was yesterday, that he was actually piloting the boat, O'Brien's Ferries, over to Inisheer, and obviously to the delight of anybody who was on that boat going over. He's a very, very popular chef. He uses quite a lot of bad language.
What kind of language?
Bad language, but he's a great character, and I would be looking forward to the show that he is making over in Inisheer, because I imagine he's going to be showcasing local foods and everything.
That show he just had on television with the other 2 chefs.
Yes. With
What you call your men from Italy and
Gino
and
yeah.
Some of them shows were very good.
Very funny.
Very
Very funny, yeah. And your man from First Dates or whatever, you know. But anyway, I'm sure there was great excitement that someone of his standing, I mean, of his calibre, was, was on that ferry. People were queuing up and they were on that ferry. That would have been a bit of crack. And anyway, he's gone over there, and I'm sure that it's very good for fishing, for all the local products, for he'll be doing, crab meat, and he'll be doing that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the show, and I'm sure showcasing local products.
Perfect, Carol. Thanks for that. And on page 4 of the Champion, slightly linked, Dan Danner has an article that almost 700 people have signed a petition requesting Clare County Council to stop, quote, turning Doolin Pier into a port. So Mr. Ramsay mightn't be able to go out. He mightn't be doing too much commercial fishing down the line in future. I would say there's people there that have the petition said this will, quote, this will prohibit the right of people to swim, paddle, surf, walk, fish, etc. and will seriously limit enjoyment of the amenity across the entire Doolin Bay area. Now, that's sort of in relation to there's a master plan for Doolin Pier. They put 6 million into actually building the pier, and then you had all the prefabs that were there, and of course you had 2 competing boat businesses, which are now one boat business. Peace broke out and one bought out the other. So would say this plan is still going ahead, and I think they're talking about having a visitor service building there as well. And we were talking about wind energy earlier, and I know the suggestion could be made that ports similar ports might be the wrong way to put it, but that places similar to Doolin may be used, we'll say, when we finally do get our ass in gear and get a bit of offshore wind, for going out to sites and stuff like that. But that's interesting.
I saw that swimming pool there. There's a stone concrete kind of structure there, and there was steps and everything going down to it, which was like a tidal pool.
Tidal, yes.
Yeah, and a lot of people. There's a great picture of the ladies who swim. It used to be called swimming. Now it's called sea swimming. which is very interesting when people talk about the sea. That came out in COVID. People just used to go swimming. Now they go sea swimming or wild swimming. You know, they put these fancy names on it. But you can see that these are locals probably who swim regularly. And they say there's up to 50 people swimming every day there who are locals. That's going to be, you know, you can see why 700 people have got together and signed it.
Yeah. Anyway, time will tell. Right, listen, we are very much out of going into extra time at the end of the part 1. Fiona Legari has an article on page 5. HSE must go ahead with dialysis unit. This was, we'll say, stress and pressure on Clare's dialysis patients was widely condemned at the July meeting of Clare County Council. So Fiona's writing on it here with a call for better facilities in the country. Pat?
Yeah, sure, it's very obvious, but you know, it's not rocket science. We should have one in the county.
Yeah, and you're quoting the Mayor of Clare, Pat.
Yeah.
The exact quote. He says, we should have this service. He told the meeting, it's not rocket science.
Why should we have it, Pat?
Well, so like you have people travelling from Kilkee. Why should they travel out from Kilkee to Limerick?
Fair enough.
To have dialysis.
Yeah.
There's over 40 people in County Clare that
unfortunately, the article doesn't give us an indication of how much it would cost to try to put in a unit in Ennis.
Yeah, well,
and you have some thoughts on that, I know.
Well, I don't care about what it costs. The fact of the matter is, we spent 94 million. Now, 94 million is a lot of money.
A lot.
On waste, on the COVID-19 vaccines that went out of date. We spent something like a couple of $100 million on PPS, the
But there's nobody monitoring the actual COVID.
Obviously, there mustn't have been. I don't know. But the HSE came out there a couple of weeks ago and they gave those figures on their annual report.
What would it mean now to, let us say, somebody in East Clare, if a unit was provided, dialysis unit was provided in Ennis?
One of my neighbours goes 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
This morning, I saw him being collected by taxi. Presumably it is to Limerick.
Yeah.
And they say the Dock Road in Limerick.
Dock
so
Road in Limerick, yeah.
That's a separate facility
it is, yeah.
from the hospital.
Okay.
Now from Scariff, they are kind of equidistant. There wouldn't be a huge difference
but
from this part of Clare.
Yeah, West Clare. West Clare would be, if you go down Kilkee and all that, and they have to come into Ennis and then go to Limerick and back again.
Fair enough.
Dialysis, the only thing I would caution is dialysis is incredibly complex.
It is complex.
And I mean, the staff who can man that personage are, you know, sometimes things are centralised because there becomes some sense of quality, you know, issues that sort of have to be addressed. But I don't think there's enough detail in this to tell you the truth about, you know, how much it would cost and how, you know, what kind of plan. Because the HSE haven't responded anyway. It doesn't look like, do they?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, are they going to write to the HSE was it passed as a motion or what?
There was unanimous agreement on it, Pat, but I'm sure we shall see what happens. Now listen, I have to move on, and there's one, I'm going to refer to page 6. We're not going to talk about it because if we started we'd be here for the hour, and I would just encourage anyone would say that's of a this position to read page 6. The new EU law locks Clare farmers and environmentalists in a fight for survival. And there is Michael McNamara on one side, and you have Clare Green Party Senator Roisin Garvey on the other side, giving two sides of it. Michael McNamara talk is cheap, government in the EU must fund change, and then Senator Garvey, EU nature laws will benefit small Clare farmers. There's a lot of reading in it. I shall leave that to read at your leisure, and you can have your own row about it.
And our readers.
Absolutely. And the one thing I do want to refer to that you both mentioned, John and Pat, to me is page 15. There is reference to helmets for rugby players.
Oh yeah, well no.
Sorry, helmet might be
just
wrong.
Just going back to that for a second, Lou.
Cheers, Pat. No, we're into injury time. Come on, very, very briefly. Go on.
900,000 tonnes of beef in this new agreement between the EEC and Brazil coming into the EEC. 900,000 tonnes of beef being imported under that, you know, that scheme, that agreement.
Yeah.
I can't think of the
yeah,
agreement.
The world, yeah, you know the one.
That was signed last week by Mrs. what you call her, the lady, the head president
Or
of the
Ursula.
Angela, or whatever her name is.
And you see negative consequences there.
And they don't have to. They don't have to start cutting out the forests over there until 2030.
I knew I shouldn't have even mentioned it.
There's 7 more years.
Talk to me about the people in Shannon, the rugby players.
Yeah, I will. The increasing awareness of the dangers of injury playing rugby. I mean, I feel sorry to have to mention it, because I'm a sports person. But there's no doubt at all about it. The science is there to show. The figures are there to show. So this company have inveigled, or have encouraged a rugby club in Clare to actually insist on wearing helmets from the moment you start playing rugby. Now, it's a move in the right direction. Whether in fact it is sufficient to guarantee a reduction, a serious reduction in injury or not, that's another question. But anyway, the photograph is there, showing the helmet on the young boy. The boy's only, I think, what age?
They're the under 13s, I think. And
yeah, definitely under 13.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, I suppose, John, when we think about when hurling helmets came in, first of all, God, they thought, now they'll never become mandatory. I mean, there is every small child that starts at 3 and 4 years of age now playing camogie and hurling, they're so used to it. So this is a no-brainer. Good for St. Helens.
Is it scrum caps they'll be using? Is it scrum caps?
Yeah,
the scrum caps.
The scrum cap type.
Yeah, well, I think they should wear them. I think actually, nearly every player should be.
Well, you see, one insurance case would be sufficient to get the change. That was one of the things that in hurling was quickly realised. Insurance. Yeah. The club becomes responsible, having been forewarned of the dangers. So we don't want to wait to have that happen.
Okay, right. Totally gone over time, and I knew that farming debate would spark it. Pat, who's alive or dead this week?
No, Luke, Christian Dignam died recently, and Alston have bought out, and she's out today. I don't know, hopefully you'll be able to get it on the Field of Athenry by Christian Dignam and Alston.
Okay, the Fields of Athenry.
Yeah, it's very good now. I listened to it yesterday. I had a try something yesterday. Very good, yeah.
Okay, right. We'll be back in a few minutes. We'll see how many fields we get through.
Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry.
Right then, that was Aslan and the Fields of Athenry. Part 2 is where we go to our own neck of the woods, and just because we're running late, we didn't get to a few things. Page 11 of the Clare Champion just has Clare crew answered life-saving call. Just want to acknowledge 5 members at Kilrush Lifeboat Station recognised for saving 3 lives. The 5 men in particular are pictured there. Great work as always done by volunteers who give of their time and to try and ensure that everybody that's out at sea is safe. And there's an absolutely fabulous picture there of a lifeboat going out.
There was also the Darren Richmond who tragically fell off the cliffs in Kilkee, and somebody else was rescued during that, so they were winched to safety. So, I mean, what goes on? It's just a phenomenal level.
Absolutely, and we say you can visit rnli.org, and there's the annual walk on the Flaggy Shore. Pat, what you
I see the retained firefighters are going on strike again next Wednesday.
Is that right?
They'll turn down the
offer from the Labour
the offer
Court.
from the Labour Court. Yeah.
Yeah, no great surprise there. I think would be the thing. Now we'll come back to our own neck of the woods. And John, there is a lady well known to you and to a lot of listeners on the radio page 2 in the living section, tracing the East Clare immigrants on their transatlantic journey, and I think you're looking forward to talking about this.
Well, now, it's Luke, she is a fascinating scholar. I consider her well worthy of that title.
And Jane Halloran Ryan is
That's
who we're
Jane
talking about.
Halloran, yeah. And she's heavily involved with the Scariff Festival at the next, when is it, the weekend, the holiday
2 weeks.
weekend. Okay. Her line, she's a professional genealogist, and of course, we're always delighted to meet genealogists because we have a thirst for our roots, haven't we? She will trace the immigrant journey from the local villages and townlands to form settlements in places like New Haven in Connecticut, Washington, Detroit, Michigan, and San Francisco in California. What we mightn't have been aware of is that East Clare immigrants often sought opportunities in industrial areas because of the location and the availability of jobs. She's chairperson of Clare Roots Society and a doctoral student on the networks of Irish and Irish American communities, and Jane will also provide a visual presentation to illustrate her talk at the marquee, right, you know where the Waterways Ireland is, right down beside that, the marquee is there, on both Saturday and Sunday. There'll be one day, now this is where you can start listening in, it will be followed by 1-to-1 free genealogy sessions, each lasting about 220 minutes. So you need to book in order to get a place there.
And I know that from last year, John, Jane was booked out rather quickly. So if you want to do it, get in quick.
You get in quickly, and it's a fascinating festival, Luke. The variety of events, testing so many different aspects of our culture. Okay, so mark it down. Mark it down.
Activist, academic and politician Monica McMillans will read at Scariff Library on Saturday, August 5th at 3 p.m. about her extraordinary life, from growing up as the daughter of a cattle dealer in Derry to being in a room with the peace talks and becoming signatory of the Good Friday Agreement. So that'll be an interesting one as well, John.
And how about the free hourly water bus tours of the Scariff River and Lough Derg? Luke, did you ever actually come up the Scariff River as far as Toongraney?
No, John, that's a silly question.
That's not, no, because
yes, many a time.
Yeah, well, it's a thrill.
I'm going from Toongraney Harbour 1 to Toongraney Harbour 2.
True, yeah. Well, I would say that the majority of our citizenry have not experienced the journey up the river.
I would encourage them to do it. And I was down in
and they're free this week.
I was down in Redden's Quay last night, and just the flow in the river there at the moment, and Carol, you probably
strong.
Very strong.
It's very strong.
Sorry, I cut you.
I just had an absolute senior moment there now because I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry about that.
It'll come back to you. What I'll come back to you on page 3 of the Living on the Champion. Clare Collective explores the strength of motherhood in new exhibition.
And of course, this is also part of the festival schedule, the festival programme, and this looks fabulous. It's the Clare Artists Mother Collective, who were founded in 2022 by Mary Fahey, Bonnie Boyle and Bella Watson. And Bonnie Boyle is, of course, very local, and we know her very well. And they have been funded, I think, with some help from Creative Ireland. And a lot of visual artists coming together. They're all mothers who work in various genre isn't the word, what is it, materials, ceramics and in painting and in fine art printmaking. And they've come together to have an exhibition, and the exhibition is actually going to be hosted at the Old Schoolhouse in Scariff as part of the Scariff Harbour Festival. Now, some of the listeners will remember going to school there, and some of them might be just very interested, not just in the art, but also in going back there I'm sure that I would understand Bonnie and PJ Mac have provided a space there, so that's going to be fascinating. And
that's on.
Sorry, it's it's launching on Friday at the 4th of August, and the show, will open on Saturday to Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 4, and it's going to be very, very interesting because it's 10 artists who come together, and we look forward to that. Can I also, you've mentioned Monica McWilliams, and there's also just another thing, the story of the Great Forest of Ockley. Yeah, will be told by Andrew St. Ledger on the Native Woodland Specialist, PRO of the Woodland League, and he begins with the story of St. Cronan's Church, the oldest church still in use, and the tale of the Ockley Forest at the time of the Brian Boru and about the time that Brian Boru was here. So there's just something for everyone at this festival. It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. When you think about the Loch Derg and the rivers up into the hinterlands of Lochgay, do you think the Irish were quite civilised in the way they treated each other at the Viking era? Do you ever wonder about that?
That sounds like something I would have been asked in my leaving
That's
that I would have had.
that's a history question.
That's a history question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I remember what I was trying to say there earlier about the river. You asked about the river, the journey up the Scariff River, and Gay Byrne, who visited here, was down in the dock and we met him and everything. He said that was the late Gay Byrne said it was one of his most favourite journeys was from from the lake and up the Scariff River. So I just think.
But will you add to it then the actual oak boat, the prehistoric oak dugout that's stuck in the mud at the edge of Loch Bridget, out the Fecal Road? You never heard of it. We have to organise a trip out to that when the water levels come down sufficiently to reveal it.
Yeah, so with global warming, we might be waiting a while, John.
Well, count me in anyway. I'd like
exactly.
to do that.
Right, John.
Thank you.
We'll come back to that. Pat, on page 13, the East Clare notes, 105 complete the Sheila Corish hike, and that's a topic.
The 30k hike and the 12 o'clock hills. The weather conditions in advance of the running of the annual 30k hike and the 12 o'clock hill looked very poor early last week. However, as the event took place, wind had subsided and miraculously very little rain outside the first hour of the 8-hour event. 105 brave hikers completed from the off at the 2-mile gate Killow. A good pace was held up the summit of Melissa, but in the pace slowed down in effort to avoid some very watery and muddy patches across Cleve Bear in the mountains. So they headed down into Broadford and they had a stop in Broadford for some refreshments, and then they headed back up and up over Broadford and Huddlestown, up over Huddlestown Hill and across the hills and back down to the 12 o'clock hills car park.
Yeah, a great number of people that did, because that's not an easy hike, like.
No,
you know,
a 30k hike.
I must do it someday.
Experienced hiker.
You might, John, you might not just need one stick, you might need two. And I think if we were all doing it, we'd need 2 sticks.
But I see some photographs and people had 2 sticks, and there was more people with 1, and there was some people had no stick.
No sticks.
Yeah.
There was the younger people, like, but I wouldn't go walking without a stick up hills now.
Yeah. And speaking of photographs,
But all the money was going to breakthrough cancer research, local.
For the late Sheila. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of photographs, Pat, an event you were at last weekend in Craiganoe. There's plenty of pictures there all over the champion, with some very nice ones. If there's any ones in particular you want to talk about, but tell us about your thoughts on the day and who you encountered.
Can you order those?
Yeah, well, there was a fine crowd up in Craiganoe.
It's page 22. There's a lot on the
full
back
page
of the
there of photographs, and there was you wouldn't get a place to park on the outside. I was going around a bit to try and fit my car in when I arrived. It was about 3 o'clock in the day when I arrived.
You'd be happy to hear that, John?
It was full of the traffic was chock-a-block, and there was a fine crowd there. They had various craft people. They had music and dancing and craft people, and we met some people that we met back in the Cliffs of Moher there as well. The soap people from Killaloe and that lady from Quinn, she's the actress.
Yeah. And were Wicks and Wax there as well?
Wicks and Wax were there as
Yeah,
well.
perfect.
So Mike Lynn, who is a Shanachie in Burnackie, he was there, so he gave us a few old stories, a few funny stories, so it'll be on.
Is it Michael Grogan?
No, Michael Glynn.
Oh, Michael.
He's the Shanachie in Burnackie. And I know him well, his people were from the Mills, or his dad was from the Mills. So.
Yeah, there always has to be a Mills connection.
And I worked with him before down in Shannon, but anyway, he gave us a couple of old yarns and we recorded it all. So probably next week.
Perfect, yeah.
Which is marvellous to see such a big crowd there.
Yep. And hopefully...
We're very happy with it and very busy.
Yes, and I said I'll be the first to admit I've been critical of the council in the past, but if this is the beginning of the future with regards to Craigenow and Napog, and after them taking them over from Shannon Heritage, I will be posting positive comments.
They have, to add to what you said, they have done so much in Craigenow in a short period, in contrast to years of neglect.
Yeah. Well, listen, we can only hope for the future, and I said with the new tourism man that's responsible for East Clare, hopefully we'll get a few more tours over each other. Now, listen, I'm going to refer back to page 1 of the Champion, but we're going to have a general discussion. Councillors blame tree huggers for stopping road grass cutting. I think poor Fiona must have been all over the county at every council meeting in the last few weeks, because it's about... the July meeting of the local authority, Councillor PJ Ryan said the government should be asked for extra funds for grass verge trimming, and the Killaloe Municipal District meeting took place on Wednesday, and it was a topic with heated debate in relation to it. Yes, and there was I would say maybe a tacit acknowledgement from the council that maybe they hadn't cut enough verges that they should have cut to date, and I suppose a dry June, Pat, with lots of rain in the last few weeks has led to rapid growth.
Yeah, it has a ditches now way out, Luke, and grass edges.
And like I know, I was down Craigenow a few weeks ago, and the road down there isn't great. But what are your thoughts in general? You know, no mow may sort of have turned into no mow at all.
Well, I'd say the council here are probably talking about the verges, the ditches, the ditches coming out. Yeah. And well, you see, the new regulation now is that you can't cut them until the 31st of August.
Yeah, but there can be health and safety concerns
in
relation to junctions. And
the council just cuts around junctions and maybe bad turns and things like that.
Yeah. Carol?
Can I just say that I just find that language quite offensive, actually. Councillors blame tree huggers. I just find that fairly offensive in this day and age. You know, there are people who care about the environment. It's an inflammatory. I'm just not happy with that comment.
Well,
I understand the issue.
It's a good headline, yeah.
Yeah, I understand the issue, but it's a quote from, it's obviously a quote from...
yeah.
You see, you have to have safety on the roads.
Yeah, you do, but that's not helpful in a debate.
I know that.
People tree huggers. I don't think so.
But a lot of farmers now, like I'd say an awful lot of farmers over around our area, and I did it then myself when I cut the hedge after the 31st of August, cut them back every year. And an awful lot of farmers around cut them back, and because the council don't do that.
Oh, absolutely.
The council probably...
Our own Pat Burke, and he's high on the ball on most things. He says in that article by Fiona, during a lengthy debate, Pat Burke said he knew of one particular road which is currently a jungle with ferns. And a load of environmentalists are living on the road. And no senior engineer will send a cutter up there, he said. They're backing off for a quiet life. What do you make of that? I didn't say that, no.
No, I just don't think I don't think it's helpful. It may be, these are facts, that there's two sides to this. But I think, and I definitely think, hedges have to be cut, but it has to be done within whatever.
There's one trimming, Luke, permitted under the legislation. One trimming.
Technically, no, but I think the hedges aren't. Hedges, I think, generally won't be touched. It's grass verges.
Grass verges
are the big issue. And I would point to you, John. If you've travelled from Tuamgraney to Killaloe in the last week or two, and look at the path that was built at great expense, and there's parts of it where you can barely see it. And I disagree. I think that should be cut.
I saw 3 hedge cutters, commercial hedge cutting today.
Well, I think
I saw that now.
that might have been maybe as
And
a,
they had
as
two
a result
guys.
of the councillors' meeting
I have a
on
funny feeling
Wednesday.
it may well.
We
Yeah.
have been coming from Gorge every day for weeks
Yeah.
from Galway,
Yeah.
and it's really deadly, the roads. You know, the verges
Yeah.
are pure
Yeah.
deadly. I
And
mean, there's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. You know.
And
Absolutely.
culverts then, you know,
Yeah.
dikes,
Yeah.
Yep.
if you go down.
Now, I'm going to finish, and I won't pass too much comment on it, but page 13, Tungrani speeding now a major public concern.
Oh yes.
And I'd only say that I don't think it's going to get any better, because when the works are finished in Killaloe, the roundabout of East Clare, which is what we sometimes refer to as the lovely village of Tungrani as, is only going to get busier, because there's going to be a lot more traffic on it. When Holy Island, the interpretive centre, gets up
Yeah.
and running, there's going to be a lot more traffic
And
on
what
it.
about the road up the church, the Catholic church, the road at the school
Both
there?
roads. Both roads.
That's
Was
not mentioned in
no,
the
no.
other
Well,
document.
when the councillors were talking about it, they were talking
Did
about
they?
both routes.
Both
Absolutely,
routes,
yeah.
Well, it's. I mean, I don't exaggerate when I say 40 miles an hour minimum would be the normal speed down past my house.
Yeah.
And I don't exaggerate it.
yeah.
now.
I know, I
That's
don't
the
think you are,
normal
no.
speed.
Yeah, and you're in the zone. Well, like, would say, I think a lot of the issue in relation to Tungrani is you're coming down Raheen Hill, and it has been previously mentioned that we'll say at the Steiner School they have been campaigning for a long time up the top end of Raheen for speed restrictions there, and it may be that sort of in the near future that there will be maybe a 50 kilometre from, we say, the top of Raheen, maybe all the way down into the village. But it needs, I think what it needs is, the solution to speeding is you narrow the road.
It's traffic calming as well. So what happened at the end of the Dock Road at the Scariff
The ramp that was
centre?
put in, yeah.
That's made a big difference to the
Yeah.
end of the Dock Road. It's made it much safer there.
Yes, because
Who
cars have to
determines-
slow down.
Look, who determines where traffic cameras, or whatever you like to call them, will be employed?
Well,
The engineers, would say.
Yeah, the engineers with the council.
The engineer.
Yeah, they do.
And they don't take their advice from any other group.
I wouldn't think so. No. Well, until they'll take.
Well, that's what the councillors then
They'll take submissions.
have to.
It's,
Yeah.
I know that they had indicated previously that there would be speed surveys done actually in the vicinity of the school, John, because concerns had been raised previously in Drewsbury with regards to the secondary school, we'll say, which is in Tungrani as well, John. I'll just put that thing back in there again, but just so you don't forget.
Of the parish, Luke.
Exactly. So, but listen, it's an issue that's going to be raised for a long time to come, and I think when the works in Killaloe are finished and with the bridge, I think there is going to be a lot of additional traffic coming from Killaloe, coming off the motorway, heading for Ennis, bypassing Limerick in general. How it used to be years ago, you know? I think it's that's just going to start off again. Listen, we're gone way over time, so Pat, when you were getting ready to tell me who we're going to finish up with, Carol, thank you so much for coming in.
A pleasure, thank you.
A 10-second version. Your husband was receiving treatment, we'll say, and featured on an advertorial on the front page of the Echo a few weeks ago. How is he getting on?
The update is he very much benefited from that hyperbaric oxygen treatment, and lots of people from Clare went up to big on the Clare Echo.
Well, so that
win-win.
Big up to the Echo. I said advertising works, front page. John S., thank you very much for your time. Pat O'Brien, thank you very much for your time. Pat,
Thanks, Luke.
who are we going to finish with?
the Galway Arts Festival is on this couple of weeks, Luke, and the Star Doctors have 2 concerts there, and they're sold out in June and Galway. So we'll go for the N17 with the Star Doctors.
Fair enough. All right, take care, Pat. For everybody here with the local media, Carol, John S., Pat and myself, we'll talk to you soon.